Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
TNA Wrestling was back with another edition of Impact Wrestling, and we're going to review it right here on the Hitting the Turnbuckle channel. This week on TNA, it was all about Naomi's last match before she returned to the WWE. Now, for those of you that have been living under a rock for the last few weeks, Naomi went back to WWE at the Royal Rumble. She's now gone to SmackDown, and she was obviously called Trinity in Impact Wrestling or TNA Wrestling. She was the TNA Knockouts champion. Jordynne Grace beat her at Hard to Kill. And she's back this week for a farewell match, which she's teaming with Jordynne Grace as well. So let's get into it. Look, Chris Sabin and John Skyler started the show in a match really where Skyler was given 95% of this match by Sabin. Sabin took a lot of beating in this match, and also it helped with Hotch trying to get some momentum by grabbing his foot on the ringside and bits and pieces like that. Generally, though, in a really good, solid opener, there was a bit where Skyler started working straight to Sabin's knees as well into the ring steps and delivered a spear at the end of it for a near fall. But at the end, Chris Sabin won with the cradle shock in a match that was sponsored by Mustafa Ali. We cannot wait for Ali to come in to TNA Wrestling. It may even be next week, actually. I'll have to find out as we roll on with the show. I'm looking forward to seeing Mustafa Ali, just out of a side note, this Sunday at Revolution Pro Wrestling at Crystal Palace, where he takes on the king of the cruiserweights, Robbie X. So we're looking forward to seeing that. But yeah, that match was sponsored by Mustafa Ali. Now at the back at this point, Jay was speaking to Alex Shelley about the ahead of the main event, really, against Eddie Edwards, which we are really looking forward to as well. Now, one of the British imports, Xia Brookside, was next in a match against Tasha Steelz. There was lots of back and forth punches. There was an octopus and a spine buster. Xia attempts the Brookside bomb, but she's pushed off the ropes. And as she does that, Steelz does a sunset out of the corner, hooks the tights for a victory. So Xia Brookside looks really good in defeat in another great knockouts contest. Looks like a program maybe started between the two. So I don't think it's the last time either of these two ladies are going to step in the ring and face off with each other. And give that match another 5, 6, 7 minutes. Could be looking at a really good match of the year contender potentially here for TNA. Now, we need to sidestep a minute and talk about the big news coming out of TNA ahead of Impact was that Scott D'Amore has been released by TNA after 20 odd years for TNA, stretching back to when it near enough began with Team Canada, all the way up until running the presidency. Now, there's lots of news that's come out about it. We're not going to focus on that on this channel. Look, we don't know the ins and outs of it. All we know is that Scott D'Amore has been released, and they've brought in some new people. TNA have got some new people at the back room to work for them. Now, look, a lot of people, there's been a lot of negativity about it. A lot of things have been raised. Oh, this is it. This is over, blah, blah. I always say this. Change happens everywhere you go. And sometimes the most popular people in a business or the people that do the majority of the work leave. It doesn't mean to say it's going to go downhill from here. We've seen a lot of wrestler support for Scott. Listen, we thank Scott for everything he's done for TNA over the last 20 odd years. But fundamentally, the answer is this. See what happens. Let's see how it works over the next months. It's going to be months and years before we see if this was a good move or not. Scott will land on his feet. He will go somewhere else and he will be fantastic at whatever he does. But don't give up on TNA just because he's gone. Give it time. Give the new regime an opportunity. And let's see, because it's not really going to be affected for the next few shows that you watch anyway, because this was all filmed, TNA filming batches. So this was all filmed before Scott D'Amore left. So keep watching and let's see what happens. Let's review it in 6 months' time as we head into the summer. Let's review the situation then. But don't give up on TNA just because Scott D'Amore's gone. Let's go into the back now. An ABC Bullet Club after their great match with the Grizzled Young Veterans last week, in which the Grizzled Young Veterans took a 1-0 lead in the best of 3 series. As they were talking about it, the Grizzled Young Veterans attack them. So hopefully next week we may see match 2, or it may be a bit later on. I'm not sure. about that. Jake something at this point also confronts Kazarian backstage about Kaz's actions. So again, could they be setting up a little program there as well? That could be something interesting. I mean, Kaz, we know, has just, kind of gone his own way now. He's been attacking a few people as of late, basically working for himself now, not worried about the fans, concentrating on him. So we'll see what happens, but something versus Kazarian could be an interesting one. Next match is one of my favorite matches. Speedball Mike Bailey and Zachery Wentz, the Rascals. Quick start, as you'd always, Bailey's obviously utilizing the kicks as he does. That's what he specializes in. There's a triangle moonsault out of the ring. There's a missile drop kick. There's another load of kicks as well. But Wentz did avoid a shooting star press and then throws Bailey's back with a German, which he nearly won off a slam after. But finally, he hit the UFO cutter and pins Bailey for the win. And afterwards, they go after the Rascals go after Speedball Bailey, and then 7, 7, 7, 7. Trent 7 comes out and makes the save, and then Macklin, and then as they see, Macklin comes out and takes out Trent 7 until Nick Nemeth comes out and takes them out and helps 7 and Bailey to their feet. I'm looking forward. Trent 7 in TNA, great, experienced WWE UK NXT wrestler, fantastic on the British independent scene. I'm looking forward to seeing what Trent 7 can do in TNA Impact. And it looks like he's going after the Rascals and Macklin, which is a hell of a start to his TNA career. So good luck, Trent. We'll be watching on over here in the UK. We're very much pride as well with all of our UK wrestlers that go over to the States. There was a vignette for Con, who obviously people may know as a guy from Ascension. Interesting on that because I think he's got something about him, and I really want to see what he can do. I always feel as if he's always been the muscle in the team. In the Ascension, he was the muscle. Obviously in TNA, he was the muscle for Violent Design or Violent Beyond Design or whatever they were called. Apologies. So I'm looking to see what he can do on his own. Speaking of what he can do on his own, Crazy Steve attacked Rhino on Explosion, and Rhino basically cut a promo for a match next week for the Digital Media Championship against Crazy Steve. So that'll be a match that we'll be seeing on TNA Wrestling Impact next week, which is really, really good. Can't wait to see that. Now we move on to Trinity's last match in TNA. She was teaming with Jordynne Grace, the person that beat her for the Women's Championship, against Savannah Evans and Gisele Shaw. Gisele Shaw, the #1 contender for Jordynne Grace, and I believe that is happening at the pay-per-view. So that'll be a great match as well. Jordynne Grace and Savannah Evans started this match, actually, and they've done the test of strength. Trinity at one point tagged in. They'd actually done the split move on Evans, but Evans and Shaw managed to take control of Jordynne Grace at one point and do a lot of double teaming. She finally hits the hot tag, and Trinity comes flying in with a drop kick, crossbody, the rear view, and just as it looks like the match is over, Gisele Shaw basically shoves the referee into it, or one of the members into jail, allowing for Trinity. Trinity hits the rear view and covers, but Gisele Shaw saves her at that point. And then there was basically a point where Trinity and Grace were double teaming Evans. Trinity hits the code red and applies the Starstruck for the tap out. And that is where Trinity holds off or leaves TNA to come back to WWE. What I'm hoping is that there's some crossovers now. Obviously, we don't know what the situation is between the WWE and TNA. We certainly don't know what it is now. Scott D'Amore's left. But I'm hoping that we get sporadic crossovers. I think like Bianca Belair wanted to come in and wrestle Jordynne Grace, or Natalya wanted to come in and wrestle Jordynne Grace. Why don't they make that happen? Surely a phone call and it can happen. I'd love to see that on TNA TV. And hopefully they can lead upon the fact that they're using Endeavor as their streaming service. And maybe they can work something out with TKO. I'd like to hope so. AJ Francis was at the back with an artist formerly known as Top Dollar. He asked Dina for help, Cody Dina, but Cody Dina said the name of Joe Hendry and say his name and he appears. He believes in Joe. We believe in Joe Hendry. And after that, basically, Dina tells Hendry not to speak to him ever again. We then come into an absolute 2-on-1 squash. It's Con versus Richard Adonis and Ori Gold. Literally a few moves, choke slam. This match is done. But it's not the end of it. Con continues attacking them, and then PCO's music hits. But although he does that, Con's not afraid. He starts attacking the doctors, PCO's doctors, on the stage, and then slugs it out with PCO right away back down to the ring. No one can separate them. This match has just got meat slapper all over it. I can't wait to see that. I think these two in the ring, just let them brawl it and let them go. It's going to be amazing when them two get a proper match together. When will that be? We don't know yet, but it should be a really great encounter. So I'm looking forward to that. I like a good old-fashioned meat slapper. Josh Alexander and Alan Angels was next. And at the start of this, Alan Angels jumped Josh before the bell. We didn't take long, though, before Josh got back in control of the game, but he did get a thumb in the eye behind the ref's back, and then they goes outside, they do a bit more inside, and then Josh traps Angels in the ankle lock, but he gets to the ropes, and they get him in the ankle lock one more time, eventually, and Alan Angels taps. Now, again, this isn't the end of what happens here. Now, Josh high-fives all the fans in the front row. As he does that, a masked man attacks him, starts beating him up. We're thinking, who is this? Simon Gotch, the vaudevillain Simon Gotch. We had Matt Raywold on commentary. He is in TNA, and he has gone straight after the walking weapon himself. This is crazy news. I didn't even know about this before. I mean, you can read results before Impact goes on the air, or you can read spoilers about who shows up. I didn't even know this had happened. Simon Gotch is one of a really, really great, technically gifted athlete. And if TNA have signed him to a contract, they have got a big get, and a very much underrated get, in my opinion. Simon Gotch would be for TNA if he has signed officially, and it's not just a one-shot deal. That is a very, very good get. Maybe just more than what people realize. Simon Gotch is a great get, but he's gone straight for the walking weapon. Interesting times. Well, welcome to TNA, Simon Gotch. If that's the case, does that mean Matt Raywold will come in and will they do something together? Who knows? Anyway, next week we do get Grizzled Young Veterans and Bullet Club round 2. We get Crazy Steve defending the digital media title against Rhino. Kazarian and Jake Something, and my favorite Ash by Elegance will be there. And more importantly, the match that I'm really looking forward to, the TNA champion and the system leader, the Moose, will take on Kushida, which I'm really looking forward to. We're going to hit the main event, Alex Shelley versus Eddie Edwards. They start with some back and forth slaps and chops. Jesus, there was a lot of those. As Shelley went to dive to the outside, though, Alisha Edwards, Eddie's wife, basically grabbed his boot, allowing Eddie to take control of this match a little bit. We went to a picture-in-picture. Shelley then, once we returned back from picture-in-picture, Shelley then trapped Eddie in a stretch, but Alisha keeps getting involved, and she choked Shelley in the ropes. And again, that allowed a bit more control for Eddie until Shelley come back with a dragon screw and continued to target the knee, which was good. But at one point, Eddie did try and basically muster enough strength in his knee to go for the Boston knee party, but Shelley catches him in a pin and wins the match. Now, again, that's not the end at this point. As Shelley goes to leave, Brian Myers attacks him, sends him back inside. Kushida runs out at this point to make the save by taking out Myers and Edwards, and Kevin Knight assists by leaping off the ropes to wipe out the system. And Knight, Shelley, and Kushida stand tall to end Impact Wrestling this week, or TNA Wrestling. So I keep forgetting it's not Impact Wrestling. That was a really, again, show that built ready for next week. I like this with TNA in a minute. They're building their shows with things going on, little subplots that are taking us forward to next week. Simon Gotch's debut was a huge surprise for me. And again, I can't wait to see what he does in Impact Wrestling. Ali's coming, obviously. Nick Nemeth is starting his first feud. There's a lot going on right now on TNA, and it's all for the better. I can't wait for next week's show. and to see what happens. Will GYV win the tag team championships this week? I personally don't think so. I think it's going to go to a 1-1 and a third match. Will Crazy Steve keep the digital media champion? What's next for Ali? Will we see Simon Gotch again? We'll have to wait out this week's episode of Impact. But another great showing for TNA. Really digging their show so far. Like I said earlier on, though, let's not be too down and negative about Scott D'Amore. We thank him for what he's done at TNA and for taking TNA from the brink of nothing to where they are now, which is, huge back again. But let's wait it out. Again, we're not going to know too much about what's going on until the next set of tapings, maybe even the pay-per-view. So keep watching TNA. Don't give up on them just because Scott's gone. He wouldn't want you to give up on them either. But this has been the TNA Impact Review on the Hitting the Turnbuckle channel with me, your host, Adam Cousins. And until next time, everybody, buckle down and stay safe.